Hello everyone, my name is Nikki and today I'm going to be talking about Rene Descartes. So Rene Descartes was born in 1596 near La Haye, France. His mother died shortly after his birth and he remained distant to his father and siblings throughout his life. He showed a lot of disdain for authorities, but he was extremely intelligent. His father, noticing his intelligence, sent him to the best college in France at just 10 years old. There, he learned science through the lens of Aristotle, who believed that all life was governed by the animal, vegetative, and rational souls, which were imperceivable forces of nature that governed life. After Descartes graduated at the age of 16, he moved to Paris and partied for a little while, until a monk by the name of Martin Mersenne took him in. They were very close, but soon Martin's clerical order had him moved away, and Descartes entered a period of emotional turmoil. At this time, he began to harbor a lot of doubt about his education, and was finding many faults in the information he had learned. Quote, "From my childhood I lived in a world of books, taught that by their help I could gain a clear and assured understanding of everything useful in life. But as soon as I had finished the course of studies which usually admits one to the ranks of the learned, I found myself so saddled with doubt and errors that I seemed to have gained nothing in trying to educate myself, unless it was to discover more and more how fully ignorant I was." End quote. Eventually, Descartes decided to just throw caution to the wind and join the military to see what they had to offer. He wanted to see if throwing himself in a completely different environment would teach him anything about the world that he couldn't learn in school. Unfortunately, though, he found the wisdom of soldiers to be no more earth-shattering than the wisdom of the scholars and soon became bored. One day, while he was lying in bed watching a fly, Descartes realized that he could at any point describe the fly's position as a function of points along the side and top of the ceiling. He had, in essence, invented analytic geometry. Descartes eventually reached Bavaria and decided to winter in an apartment, spending copious amounts of time meditating on science. He arrived to the conclusion that the key to scientific truth was to systemically doubt everything and build upon only what is certain to be true. At this point, all of his turmoil ended as he decided to give everything to this new way of thinking, and he continued an anonymous study for almost a decade. One of his main ideas developed was the idea that any subject could be reduced to the most basic unit of simple natures. Simple natures were ideas that were immediately clear and distinct and incapable of doubt. He decided that there were only two simple natures, extension and motion. Extension was the occupation of space by matter, and motion was the change applied to that matter. In 1633, Descartes released his manuscript Le Monde on his ideas about physics and physiology. Just as he was about to publish his manuscript, though, Descartes heard that Galileo was being threatened with torture due to his heliocentric theories about the solar system. He was forced to recant his theory and, as Descartes also entertained the heliocentric theory in his manuscript, he pulled it from being published. He was not in any danger from sharing the theory since he was residing in Holland at the time, but he desperately wanted the respect and acceptance of the Catholic Church. The manuscript was revolutionary, as it was the first well-known document that integrated the various fields of study into one universal science. It aimed to connect all knowledge with a single set of fundamental principles. Descartes theorized that all things were made up of tiny heat, air, and earth particles that all interact and are responsible for matter in space. This is an early version of the atom. Descartes also created an early concept of reflexes, an idea that the brain was a system of tubes and valves that controlled movement. In order for these tubes to be activated, there had to be an external source or stimuli that caused a reaction. Descartes argued that animals could be completely explained mechanically, devoid of any spiritual or supernatural influence. He did not say the same for humans, however, due to the presence of reason and consciousness. In 1637, Descartes released his volume that would contain his most famous quote. "And finally, when I consider that the very same thoughts which we experience when awake may also be experienced when we are asleep, while there is at that time not one of them true, I suppose that all the objects that had ever entered my mind when awake had in them no more truth than the illusions of my dreams. But immediately upon this I observed that, whilst I thus wished to think that all was false, it was absolutely necessary that I, who thus thought, should be something. And as I observed this truth, I think, therefore I am, was so certain and of such evidence that no ground of doubt, however extravagant, could be alleged by the skeptics capable of shaking it. I concluded that I might, without scruple, accept it as the first principle of the philosophy of which I was in search." End quote. Descartes eventually passed away in 1650 at the age of 53. His work provided the foundation for several essential psychological concepts, such as innate and learned reflexes, which is the basis for behaviorism, the duality of mind and body, nerve impulses, and the idea that the brain is the central organ for thought and decision-making. The end.